if you adopt the same lifestyle, the same eating habits, the same things that your parents did, and you continue on that way, yeah, you can look, oh yeah, everybody in my family has type 2 diabetes. And you can say, no, you do not have to own that story. That is their story, not yours. But if you don't have that conversation, think of the people that you meet. Some of them are so overwhelmed, depressed, and feel like there is no hope because everybody in their family has it, or everybody they look at around them has something or other. So it is important. The other thing that I think is really fascinating is to also look at the timeline. You'd be amazed at what you can discover if you look at the timing of certain events in their life. There was someone who was talking yesterday afternoon. I got here late, and I was listening to her talk about stress and traumas and how they're cumulative and how our brain reacts to them and how it becomes an easy trigger to set it into motion again. It's the same thing. Sometimes you'll find that a young adult got really sick with, say, mono, and ever since that moment has never felt well. Or I had another one where it was like about every 9 years, there was a severe illness. It was like clockwork. Or how about the young woman that goes on to birth control because she had acne, not for birth control, but for all their other reasons. And then at that moment, she starts getting sick. She starts having mood issues. She starts having a series of things go on. And then to the point that even when she goes off birth control, and these are real people in my practice, she hasn't had a cycle for 2 years. Those things matter. Because while they are where they are right now, how they got there is so important. We also need to take a moment to look at what's going on with their lifestyle. And I think it's also important when you're looking at the lifestyle, what's the history? I always put in there kind of like the things that they eat. And then I also ask, did you recently make some changes? Because they could look really good, but it's only been really good for about 2 weeks. So you want to know what was going on, behind that. And then it is our job to help them find what works for them. Because I'll tell you, what works for me is not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. We're different individuals, so we got to move beyond any kind of fad diet. I say fad because it becomes very fad-like. But just because I could do a ketogenic doesn't mean she could. You might do better on a paleo or whatever it is. So in that, we look for indicators of what they feel worse with, what they've kind of figured out on their own, things that they're craving, and then we help them get to that other step. Do they know if they have any known allergies or food intolerances? And see, I ask that not because I think that it's forever. I think it's because that tells me a lot about their gut, doesn't it? We have a lot of people that are not celiac, but yet have issues with gluten. Or sometimes they think they do, right? I always love to say, sugar is gluten-free. So be careful, right? Look at their bowel habits. Believe it or not, you guys, we should all poop at least once a day. But yet, some of our patients, they do it once a week. And they will decide, because that is what they're used to, that is normal. I said, no. Just because it's usual for you does not make it normal. There's nothing normal about that. And if you want, you can look at like a Bristol stool chart to kind of get them to highlight exactly what that looks like. Yeah, just for you students, just in case you were wondering what all you were going to talk about when you get into practice, poop is one of them. Just letting you know. What about sleep habits? If you cannot sleep, you cannot recover. Think about all the things that need to happen when we go to sleep. So what is going on if they're not? Are they having trouble falling asleep? Are they having trouble shutting their brain down? Or did they fall asleep only to wake up a few hours later? Sometimes, if it's consistent at the same time every night, you can correlate that actually with an organ. They always wake up between 1 and 3 a.m., think liver. Now that may correlate into what we also look at them structurally, but it also might provide some insight what we would do nutritionally. And then there are the ones that are more random, and that can come from what we call nocturnal hypoglycemia. So blood sugar drops a little too low. The body surges stress hormones to bring that blood sugar up rapidly, which also causes them to wake up. And they just don't know why. And if it happens to be in the throes of some mild hormonal imbalances, it could actually bring on a hot flash and a night sweat. And then she will think it's because of her hormones specifically and not because of a blood sugar issue. See, it's really fun if you do it this way. You'll never be bored. If we're looking at the functional physiology, so I'll admit when I first got out, I didn't look at lab tests. I didn't look at anything else that was going on. I listened to him. I talked to him, palpated, did all the things that I was taught in school to do. Might listen to their heart, check their ears, that sort of thing. But if we can embrace, and I do think we have to, because patients are coming in, they're coming to us because they actually want an answer. They want to know why. They're tired of what they have, to be quite honest. And they're tired of symptom chasing. They're tired of another drug and then 5 more drugs for the side effects of the first 2 or 3 or 4, right? So when we're looking at those labs, what we get to see is we can look for optimal function versus pathology. Remember, we all have had pathology in school. That's that disease state. So when you fall out of this broad lab reference range, you're in trouble. Do you want to wait? We're not wanting to wait for that moment. We want to catch that trend. It is no different than you having a discussion with a patient about why they should come in for wellness care, right? Do you want to be the Band-Aid chiropractor? It's frustrating and there's no joy in it. This is the same idea. We're teaching them wellness about their body from the inside out, all the way through. So the labs can be a really powerful guide. And if we take it into looking at what I call functional nutrition, not nutraceuticals, it's about being proactive and preventive, not reactive. And I'll admit, even in our profession, the things that we do, even with nutrition and good herbs, yes, can we do some rescue work? Absolutely. As long as it doesn't stay the rescue. As long as we're always looking for that deeper cause. But I would much rather give them something that is a rescue without the side effects as many drugs have. And of course, we're looking for the feeling, the best them that they can be. So utilizing these different tools can be really, really beneficial. And it's not, I always think about this work. Some people don't want to do the work, but I always come back to the fact that we all are either going to school or went to school for a reason, and that reason was to be a doctor. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy. And it certainly isn't impossible, but it keeps us growing and keeps us moving forward, and I think it makes us very, very unique in this profession. Now, how do we pull it together? I mean, that's the other part. And sometimes I do think this can be a bit overwhelming when we're trying to figure out, oh my gosh. And sometimes that person is so sick, you kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with where do you begin. So you have to look at very foundational stuff. You have to look at, digestion or gut health, the detox pathways, the elimination, how's their immune system functioning, hormone balance. You have to look at all of that. And when I teach, just because, I love analogies, and I've only given you one so far. So my other favorite one is to kind of think about a dirty room. So you mentioned I have 4 children, so you can kind of imagine that there were some pretty scary, dirty rooms. Sometimes there were science experiments growing in those rooms. I know, it was like, really? Could you just throw it away? If you're not going to eat your lunch, throw it away. Why do I have to find it later? But that's a whole other story. But if you think about it, let's just say the gland or the individual, they are that dirty room. And as all things go, we go by communication, right? How the body functions is by communication. And when there's not the appropriate response by the body, doesn't that signal get louder? Very much like a parent. They don't do what we want them to do, we get a little bit louder. Like, would you clean your room? But you have to at some point, okay, well, why? Why isn't he cleaning the room? So one example could be the fact that the gland is just too tired. I give the joke that I walk by and say it's my youngest son, Dalton, and he's just, oh, but Mom. He's just like, every time I walk by, he's sleeping, and he's just too tired. When we see that, and trust me, people get tired, don't they? So then we think of things that are strengthening, toning, restorative, adaptogenic. But what if he's just like, he's sitting there on the bed, and I keep going, Dalton, would you clean your room? And I keep going back, I keep getting louder and louder. He's like, but I don't have anything. I don't have anything to clean it with. So imagine how we are able to repair ourselves and respond. We have to have the tools, right? We have to have the nutrients. So it's all fine and good that I want him to do his job, but if he lacks the tools that he needs, he's not going to be able to do that. And I think that's very much about our diet, right? That is our diet. That's our nutritional support. Now, say I shove everything up to his door so that he can, here we go. Here's everything you need. But what if it can't get in? What if he's like, well, I ain't opening the door. Well, the door's not opening. But what if I can't get it in? That is digestion. If I give you a ton of nutritional support, knowing, hey, this is all the best stuff, but he can't digest and absorb it, is it going to do him any good? No, I miss a very, very important issue that is going on right there. And then ultimately, what if everything just keeps going in the room, nothing ever comes out, right? These are where the science experiments happen. Things don't come out. Sometimes they ooze out. Just don't ask what, right? But when someone has an overburden of toxins and those impaired detox pathways, no matter what you shove in, no matter what you push in there, if those pathways are compromised, nothing else is going to work right. So sometimes those are the most foundational ones. And we also know that anything we do there makes everything else work better. The immune system work better. Hormones will be able to balance better if we have good detox pathways. We can actually make the hormones we need if we can actually absorb the nutrients that are necessary. But does that make sense? Can you guys see how just those, and I'm telling you, you use some of these analogies, your patients totally get it. But doesn't that make sense of why this is so important? It's not enough to just do the adjustment. We have to be more than that. So with the diet, we're there to fill in the gaps. I always tell my patients, I'm like, you cannot supplement your way out of trouble. It's great, you need them, but can you imagine? You're giving them all the best supplements you can think of, while every day, 3 times a day, they eat at McDonald's. Everything's got to come together, at least better, right? Giving them real tangible goals. I did the wrong button. Let me see. I know. Yes. Okay. It's not my usual clicker. The more complex it is, the more simple you have to keep it. And to be really honest too, if this is like something new for you, when I first started, I did the things that felt the easiest to master. Well, you never really master it. But as my knowledge expanded, then it's interesting. The universe meets you, don't they? The more complex patients come in to challenge you. But I always get reminded that the sicker someone is, the less that they can handle. And you know what? If you're the first one to do anything for them, those of you that have been chiropractors for a really long time, don't you just, God, isn't that adjustment just so satisfying? When someone just walks out, that headache is gone. And sometimes it's just that first step, that first feeling of better, that first little thing that you get them to do that gets them moving forward. When I think of herbal support, I think of systems rather than symptoms. So we could think nervous system. We could think endocrine system. We could think the gastrointestinal tract, that system, the immune system. We look at tonics and adaptogens. So when we talk about herbal therapy, a tonic tones a gland or is a tone for the body. Many herbs also act tropho-restorative. And then when we think about an adaptogen gives us the appropriate response to the environment. So it's kind of like, if we're talking about, in particular, like the stress-handling glands, such as the adrenals. Very good to tone. That's like depositing energy back into the gland. The adaptogens is about that appropriate release of energy. It's kind of like, so we meet the task at hand without giving everything up, so that there's still something left. And when we do that, think of it in time frames. Think of it as a system. You know, we can get the symptom, quote, relief. We can find things change much quicker. But when you're looking for true physiology to shift, for someone to really move forward, you got to think 2 to 4 months. And I've had docs before say, well, I don't think they're going to do that. I need that quick fix. I need that 10-day cleanse or lose weight yesterday. I go, you know what? I go, if that's truly your patient's perception, then they're never going to be in it for the long haul anyways. Because if you got someone who does not care enough about their health to work with you for 2 to 4 months, then you can do what you want, but you're going to end up being frustrated. And I really do. I think it's about the education. I think it's about the education that we give them. The lifestyle recommendations. I think one of the big things I feel about this one is you got to meet them where they are. And you got to give them tangible goals. Again, the more out of balance they are, if you are shifting over to tree hugger status, it's going to be very difficult. And depending on that personality, many will get frustrated. They will feel worse about themselves because they're like, oh gosh, I can't do this either. And then they end up leaving our practice and we don't ever actually know why half the time. One thing that I have learned is that we're not all the same. Some patients need rigid guidelines, that very type A personality. They want to know there's no moderation in their vocabulary. They know, no. They'll say, like, tell me what to do without. And yet you'll have the other person, the minute you say, you can never have coffee again, because I know y'all had coffee this morning. It's one of my favorites. But if you said you can never have coffee again, first of all, they're going to think about is how much they want coffee, like obsess about it. But it may not work for them. Instead, you might say, hey, you know what? Why don't you try going without it? Let's just go without it for 3 weeks. It takes 21 days to break a habit. Just try going without it for 3 weeks and see, is it that you really love coffee? Or is, our indicator the creamer and all the sugar that you add to it that you're really going for and it's not your love of coffee? But sometimes those smaller goals will make a bigger difference. So with that lifestyle, I know we're so great about the chiropractic aspect of it, and we will tell them stretches to do, we'll show them things to do, we'll talk about the exercise, but you got to also add the other part with it. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. I love my profession so much. It's why I give it my time to come and be with my peeps, right? And one of the things that, and I know you guys are so great in philosophy out here, but think about this. We think about the subluxation complex, right? The 3 T's. And I'll tell you in school, I just went, yeah. But as I've gotten out and practiced and gotten older and done more with the nutrition, the 3 T's could not make more sense, right? It's trauma. It's that physical part, right? It's our thoughts. The thoughts that can derail us or the thoughts that can move us forward. And then finally, it's the toxins. The toxins that come in our environment, come in through our diet, and more importantly, our inability to eliminate them. When any one of those three things is out of balance, we have an individual who is in a state of dis-ease. So my challenge to you guys is, as you go forward, take it beyond the adjustment, embrace the whole triad, look at the 3 T's, and talk to them about all of it. And teach that patient, be the physician that they're looking for. Thanks.